And we're off the races.
Yay! Welcome to Sazilla, ladies and germs.
It's Matt.
And Susie, and you are at Wenatchee Insurance. And we are in Wenatchee, Washington, and we do Wenatchee's insurance stuff. And we're here on Suzilla talking about stuff that we want to talk about. Whether it's insurance or not remains to be seen.
Well, we are talking as weirdly today is going to be about optics.
Optics, okay.
Despite us using a little handy dandy audio format.
Yeah, well, we've done videos before.
We have done videos before.
Yeah,
we're not really set up in this room to do solid videos.
No, we're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to bring in some professionals if we really want to do it right. And switch boards.
But it's a podcast. Does it really matter?
For some people, it does. Oh. There's a tremendous amount of the population that are visual. Mm. It's like 80%. Oh, okay. that are visual primary.
Well, that's why I have a big screen at my office. Mm-hmm. I have I work with a laptop and a second monitor for my clients to see what I'm doing, and I mirror it, and I'm actually just about ready to get a third screen just so I can open up extra screens. And that's just a matter of ordering it and getting it installed. But Matt's set up with 3 screens.
Yeah, and I usually I mirror my laptop and one of the screens to share the one screen that swings out further
with your client.
With a client,
right?
So they don't have to necessarily see everything I'm doing.
No, I like to. Yeah, exactly. I'll mirror what we're discussing. If I'm looking at their profile, if I'm looking at the health plan finder, if I'm looking at Medicare.gov, I will mirror that screen. Mm-hmm. A third screen will allow me to look at stuff that they don't necessarily need to be seeing, like emails and things like that, where there might be protected information. Yeah. Where at this point, I just have to tilt my screen back and then tilt it back over. It's annoying, but it's not undoable. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, let's get into optics. We've been kind of we play a lot with optics.
Yeah, we do. Partly just at first glance at the way we decorate our office is optics.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm up to a certain point where people are starting to notice, oh my gosh, you've got some really cool things to look at.
Yes. And you need a couple, you still got a couple of spots that need to be addressed. Mm-hmm. But the one that the portrait of you still catches people. You get a bunch of comments on that all the time.
Yes, that's the top one. The kitty poster, Jonesy hanging in there
on the alien tail.
A fair amount, and the Mona Lisa is another one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't think people really notice the sunflowers.
Some do because it cracks them up. But yeah, it's designed to be light and invoke humor. Mm-hmm. We're having a lot of images flash across our screen these days.
Oh my God!
That are not light and are not
fun. No, there's some heavy stuff happening. Yes. Yeah. And a lot of it, the thing is about optics is as a business owner, we have to make sure that we are presenting something that is true to us.
Well, it's something true to us. We also there's a form function thing.
Okay, go ahead.
And we stress a lot about function because we want insurance plans to be functional.
Well, yeah.
We want our people to be there when they need to be there. Mm-hmm. So for us, we really stress the function and that form and how beautiful it is. It's kind of secondary. Mm-hmm. We don't care if it's from United Farmers Co-op Insurance Company. We care about whether that company is a good, solid company that'll be there when you need it.
Exactly.
So that's where our whole mindset comes from. There are some that lean into that United Farmers Co-op because that's all they've got.
Right. That's pretty much their only option.
Yeah.
That being said, optics is... Let's define optics for someone who maybe hasn't used that phrase before.
Optics is a visual means of messaging, conveying a complex message simply.
Okay.
It's like poetry is essence is distilling down words into as few as possible to make a complex story.
Okay. I don't know. I've seen some pretty big poems.
Yeah, but that's epic stuff, and
That's different.
It's a little.
It's its own genre.
Yeah, it's its own genre. Yeah, it's the haiku method when it comes to things. And so we play with, okay, what's this one piece? And Susie could usually pick a piece, and it's like, oh, and this means this, and this is the story behind this.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to get these depth of conversation.
Yeah, start digging things in. Okay, I just had an example of where optics might be tilted on somebody. Mm-hmm. You're sitting here with a drink from our local espresso stand. It is a Pink Lotus. It's a pink drink.
Yeah.
Okay. There are people who would look at that and automatically dismiss you because it's pink.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an optics thing. And there are people who go, I would never have a pink drink on my desk because it's girly.
And here's one of the amusing ones about that is usually the biggest, toughest guy in the hood can get away with the most girly of images.
Oh, hell yeah. It's because no one ever questions his
because they're completely secure in who they are. Exactly. And if someone gives it, they'll whack them out of line.
That's an optics thing.
Yeah.
This is an optics thing. But in Matt's maybe not the biggest he's the biggest burliest guy in our office. He's the only guy in our office. And we've got.
But that's that image. It's like the old school wrestlers with the feather boas.
Yeah.
You can get away with pushing some of those secondary images. In high school, one of my absolute favorite shirts I had before there was a Disney Warner Brothers store was I had a bootleg Bugs Bunny shirt.
Oh.
Bugs Bunny playing a rock and roll guitar.
That would have been bootleg.
It was very bootleg. I got it off the University Avenue in one of the shops and tucked way out in the deep corner. That someone pressed this image. I'm like, oh, this, and I wore that thing to death.
I believe it. You just reminded me of your son.
Yeah, it was one of those things. So yes, you can be, and that's how you start to see. Okay. You start to see on who's fragile by they have this forced imagery.
Yes. They wouldn't have a pink drink on their desk because they're fragile.
They're fragile little flowers.
They're not secure enough in their personal existence to have something that somebody might misperceive them.
Yeah.
That kind of
thing. And they're leaning hard in those secondary imageries.
And creating a false optics. Or optics, they're creating optics rather than naturally existing with their optics. Yeah. It's like, oh no, I've got to have this just so, I've got to have that just so, I've got it. It's because that is the optics they want to project. Whether or not that's true to their self remains to be seen. We see that with people who are closeted.
Oh yeah.
And that's not just because they're fragile little flowers, but because they're afraid of what the world will do to them if they are not presenting as expected.
Well, it's the preachers jumping up there and their plaid worker outfits and their $500 shoes and
their $400 jeans
jeans that are pressed, and it's just like you just like look at them. It's like you're a poser.
You're pretending to be the working Joe when you're living in a $6 million house
that the church buy,
that the church built for you.
Yeah,
not just bought you, built for you.
And it's you start to see this forced optics game.
Yep.
And it's really a forced, and it's really when you see that forced, it's supposed to play with you. And it's supposed to manipulate you. And that's where that force comes. And it's not natural. It's AstroTurf for the eyes.
I like that.
And so you like, okay, well, how did? And then we're one of the things out there is let's get into the protest because
that's the big news this week.
It's there are certain things.
There's a lot going on right now.
There's a lot going on. I mean, there's in our state. protests over in Seattle and Spokane.
Right.
I want to say there was rumors of ICE operations in Quincy and Yakima.
We had an ICE arrest here in Wenatchee last week.
Mm-hmm. But this is just last night, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So you got stuff popping off, and some of those arrests have been pretty deplorable.
Mm-hmm.
The pregnant gal
Yeah.
in California,
Yeah.
9 months pregnant, getting manhandled, an American citizen.
Yeah.
There's just no way you can paint that without it just being absolutely horrible.
That's optics.
That's optics.
Now, here's another one. The fellow that was arrested here in Wenatchee was arrested at the courthouse. Now, there are laws that prevent arrests like that without a specific type of warrant for happening within a mile of a courthouse.
Correct.
He was arrested on the courthouse steps. Now, the optics that are being pitched is why he was at the courthouse to begin with. He was being tried for a pretty awful crime. So, he was a bad guy, so it's okay for them to break the law to arrest him.
Well, actually, that's one of the biggest complaints on the whole due process is you have immigrants that are, various status levels, whether they're here on asylum, whether they're a green card holder, whether they're trying to, be processed in the system. They're doing the legal steps in the law.
Yeah.
They get a court summons for this immigration court.
And
ICE will either grab them before the court or they will wait until after the judge is magically dismisses all the cases, and then they get grabbed.
Right. Theoretically a mile beyond the courthouse.
No.
No?
No, they'll hit them in the parking lot.
Okay. So they're violating that they're violating that law.
That's a Washington state law.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize it was
It's a Washington state thing.
Oh, well, good job, Washington State, on that one.
Yeah, they did that very specifically because you want everyone to be able to access the courts.
And feel safe.
It feels safe. It's for everybody. It's for victims.
Well, one of the things that was that was pointed out is with this arrest, which has been it's been yelled at a lot, but it actually hasn't been overturned or anything, because this guy is not getting due process for this immigration system. He was in the process of getting due process for what he was arrested for civilly and that kind of thing locally.
Well, that's criminal.
It's criminal. Sorry, not civil, criminal.
Because civil is the immigration side of things.
I had it backwards. Thank you very much. But one of the things that one of the local judges pointed out is with ICE violating that law, it will scare witnesses.
Yeah.
It will keep them from wanting to testify in criminal trials. I mean, it's a big flippin' deal. It's not people who are being tried. It's people who are there to support people who are being tried. It is people who are trying to get their citizenship sorted out. It's people who are testifying against their abusers. They're the ones that are being, because of that optic, because of ICE being there and scaring people, they are driving the justice system underground.
Well, yeah, you start to get this weird two-tiered justice system.
Yeah.
It becomes very lopsided, where you get this immediate rush to do things that are kind of in this quasi-fascist state, and then you get everything else, which is just kind of plods through. So it creates this problem with our third branch of government.
Exactly.
And it's one of those ones that optically has got to be corrected rather quickly.
Yes.
And rather harshly.
Right. Right now, the optics of that particular arrest are, the pivot is, he was a bad guy. He was there for a criminal case. Therefore, it's okay for ICE to have nabbed him.
Those people are also not in charge.
That's right. But that's the optics that's being pitched.
It's the grapevine. It's the informal stuff.
And it's being supported by those who support these this foul product of this administration.
Mm-hmm. Now let's get into the hey, let's legitimize this stuff.
Okay.
Because that is also an optic, and it was one of the ones that was brought to my attention was House Resolution 488.
Yeah.
Where 75 Democrats went with the Republicans, basically saying, hey, law enforcement's job of all levels is to support the feds.
Mm-hmm.
And we acknowledge that, immigration is part of law enforcement, and they're doing a wonderful job.
Mm.
We had 2 Democrats in our state sign off on that.
Mm.
So that was one of the first things I had to contend with earlier this week, to let some people know. And I had a few people that were they're like, oh yeah, I know this one. They voted horrible things in the past. And there was a couple that are like, oh no, this person wouldn't do that. And I'm like, here's the receipt, here's the voting record, here's what they said. They
really did do this.
They really did do this.
All right, I just had a thought just now. One of in this, I'm not making excuses, but that particular, I have not read the resolution in detail, so
it's 3 pages.
I'm kind of relying on you to correct me. One of the things that we're running into in Washington State, and we're not the only ones doing that, is this might be just within Washington. It might be a local thing. Is local sheriffs refusing to enforce laws. Because
that's actually a United States thing.
Yeah.
You're talking about constitutional sheriffs.
Yeah.
And famously, this happened also this week, and I was going to get into this, so we'll get into it now, is Clint Didier.
Mm.
Yeah, he's one of the more extremists, and that's not a fan, is working on linking up counties to do that.
To enforce the constitutional sheriffs.
No, they're going to support the constitutional sheriffs in assisting ICE.
Oh. All right. So here's an interesting question. One of the things about that. Okay. So the sheriffs are choosing to not enforce laws that are on the books. But the resolution said that our local law enforcement is there to support federal laws. So isn't that two-sided there? You need to support this gun law, but you also need to support ICE. Isn't that sort of a little broad, or am I missing something here?
Support ICE? Well, no, it's what they're trying to do. It's not going to be a statewide law. It's going to be a local jurisdiction support thing.
I'm sorry. I'm going back to the resolution.
Okay, the resolution, that's federal.
I know. And what I'm saying is I'm going back to the resolution because it kind of hit me. It's like you've got.
Yes, it's in conflict with state laws of the sanctuary states.
Okay, so I need to go back and really dig into that a little bit. All right, so but you were talking about Clint Didier and his new party.
Well, it's the extremists that want to fully support ICE and the deportation of our communities.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way I could
basically kick anybody brown out of this United States. Oh, we get a comment. Someone arguing with us?
No, Ava. Ava, do you want to make a comment? No. Okay.
Either way,
we'll keep going.
Thanks for listening, Ava.
So yeah, we've now got local folks that are at the county level.
Yeah. And the county level is
working to push the county law enforcement to support federal law and bypass state law. It's like
okay. So one of the things that I've heard a couple times is federal law trumps state law. That's not always the case because the rule is the stronger law is of the land. So if you're in the state, and like for example, minimum wage, that's a good example. Minimum wage in Washington State is $16.66. Federal minimum wage is $7.25. Therefore, the minimum wage in Washington State trumps the federal minimum wage.
Correct, because it improves.
Exactly. So that's the same thing with other laws. So it's not just the federal law is the law of the land, because we still have states' rights.
Well, it's the interpretation is done by the third branch of government.
Right. That would be the
judges.
I mean,
So you got to let them do their work. However,
Yep.
they're not letting them do their work. They're being that constitutional nonsense into the game. And I say constitutional nonsense because
it's not constitutional.
They say that it trumps all the other laws and all their other duties.
Right.
Yet they pick and choose which ones they adhere to.
Right.
And that is the issue is the picking and choosing of laws. We've seen that for the last 20 years increase, and now we're going to see that with law enforcement and supporting of ICE. One of the questions I had yesterday and over the Spokane incident was the people on the ground who were doing a peaceful job, doing it great until law enforcement decided to escalate by bringing in a SWAT team and their armored vehicle.
Now, did we know where that? No, there's
the person on the ground said it was from Idaho,
but we don't have verification of that.
I could not get it close enough because a lot of the traditional markings of law enforcement are obscured.
Yeah, which in its own right is
optics.
It is optics, and I don't like that. I think your cop stuff needs to be clearly identified.
Well, yeah,
and I also have a problem with ICE wearing masks.
Well, we have rules in Washington State for particularly traffic stops that can only be done in a well-marked vehicle.
Right, and there are some that are not so well marked these days.
They keep playing with that, and no one has spent the time and money to say, hey, these need to be clearly defined. That way we don't see fake people pulling people over.
Exactly.
We're already starting to see people get their $25 ICE jackets off Amazon and going harassing people at Home Depot.
Yep.
One of the biggest things that we have is it's the 14th is the racial profiling. And we've seen a number of people who have been yanked by law enforcement or accused of being non-citizens because of appearance.
Right, racial profiling. Now, ICE, as an agency, needs to be concerned about this optics. They need to say, hey, stop. They need to be concerned that somebody is getting an ICE branded jacket off of Amazon and going harassing someone because that is a negative optic on them.
They're actually running with the negative optics to drive fear because it's not truly about arresting the worst and horrible people. No. It's really looks to be a terror campaign.
Right. However, that being said, if ICE were doing what they're supposed to be doing rather than being the Gestapo team that they are,
I prefer Stasi.
Stasi, okay. Okay. The Russian version.
No, Stasi is East German.
East German, sorry, because it's more modern.
Well, not only is it more modern, they relied on a lot of spying.
Yeah.
And I got to witness that up close when the East German government fell in '90.
Yeah.
Because I was in Germany, and so for a long time, people would sit there and report to the Stasi police and disappear for torture and nefarious things. And when those police stations fell, all those records became out in the public, and all the horrible misdeeds of the informants got presented. So it was not a good time for those people.
No, probably not. All right, so our secret police basically is what we're dealing with. I lost my train of thought.
Well, I'll go get an example, and Lime is having to deal with this one.
Okay.
Lime scooters have been famously used to blockade the ICE in Seattle.
Yes.
They've tried to. Yesterday, they tried to deactivate all the ones within a couple block radius. They still hauled them in.
Well, part of the reason is, at least a
Mhm.
little bit, is because their scooters are in danger of being damaged.
Now,
But they also,
out on the internet, there's some wonderful
but there's also the whole
propaganda pictures of Comrade on his lime green scooter.
Oh, the one getting clobbered by the cop?
No, of it's a propaganda poster saying the new tool of freedom.
Oh.
So you've got natural imagery starting to show up on the sides of the protests.
Right. Now, Lime has to decide whether or not they want to have that optic in there as applied to them.
Oh, they're going nuts.
Yeah.
Another one that went nuts was the cars, the automated cars that were burned in LA. There was 5 of them. I think it was Sunday or Saturday night that they got lined up and set fire to. There's a famous picture of a gentleman standing on top waving a Mexican flag. And that's the point where folks started saying, oh, no, we can't have Mexican flags because this feeds into the conservative side of things. Because, yes, it's horrible. Now, if you get into the nuts and bolts of it, that company is an ABC company, which owns Google. Google famously gave a whole bunch of money to the Trump campaign. So it's like, okay, they burned up some of their cars. Yes, it's a horrible thing. They should have deactivated the self-driving cars, within in the area, but they didn't realize that protesters would get creative.
True.
And that's one of the things about protesting is being creative. You will see some really creative solutions out there. Because there are people that can think on the fly, and they've been doing this for years. You brought up, hey, handy dandy traffic cones.
Oh, you should not put a traffic cone over a
CS
canister and dump water down the hole, because that's not the right thing to do for a tear gas canister.
Correct.
It's not good for it at all.
Yes, CS is one of those lovely tear gas that creates a dry element that'll stick to mucous membranes, like in your nose and eyes.
And if you are asthmatic or have any kind of lung disease, it could kill you. Or at least cause a lot of disaster.
We had a bunch get killed because they dropped it in a closed environment during training.
Oh,
that's why it's used kind of weirdly in military training. Almost all the people who've been in military have to go through it at least once a year. We went through it a ton of times when I was in.
Just to remind you what it's like.
And it was even worse when I was a sergeant, because I would have to, be the, hey, big tough sergeant, hey, we're going through this, and lead the private. So I was able to put on this effective mask of, oh yeah, let's go on to the CS, and we do all sorts of nutty, crazy stuff, like doing push-ups in a CS room.
That's not good, because that makes you need to breathe more, and that's bad.
Yes. So you get this kind of weird mythos of what you're able to do. And yes, we do like the company mottos after unmasked, and yeah, very similar to some of the COVID protocol where, hey, you don't rub your eyes, you don't touch your face. Stuff gets on your clothes, so you want to make sure your clothes are washed. How you take off your clothes is you open up your collar and pull it over your head,
and do not let it touch don't let it touch your face.
Yeah, or any mucous membrane.
No, and that's one of the things you learn when you're in the service.
Yes,
that's just training.
That is training, and that's going to segue off into what they did at Fort Bragg.
What did they do at Fort Bragg?
Fort Bragg was a political rally by Trump and Hedges. And it was something that was specifically should have never happened. There when you're in the military, you're not supposed to show up for political rallies in a uniform.
Right.
It was quite clearly a political rally where they were talking about harming other Americans, specifically the actions against California. They were talking and praising the Confederacy.
What?
They were talking about on how wonderful it is to have Fort Bragg back from Fort Freedom. The reason why Fort Bragg had its name changed.
Oh, because General Bragg was a Confederate hero.
Confederate general. He was General Lee. Benning. There were about 8 forts that were renamed during the Biden administration to get away from those Confederate generals.
Right.
And Trump and company
famously, and Seth and the like, famously renamed them.
Renamed. So they were literally celebrating the Confederacy there while talking about Americans, about hurting Americans. Every NCO and officer should have felt the little hairs on the back of the head go.
I hope they did, but weren't they required to be there? Did they have a choice to be there?
The company commanders put out the duty sheet, basically saying, "Hey, you don't have to be here if it hurts you. If you don't like the politics of it, you don't have to be here. And no fat soldiers allowed."
Yeah, I heard about that.
So it was a completely optical charged event. Now, when you're in the service, you get a lot of flack if you go outside your chain of command. You just period. I've started to see some soldiers stand up and say, "Hey, this is messed up. I'm going to be a conscientious objector." You have that right. However, you get a lot of garbage.
The peer pressure's heavy.
It's not just peer pressure. You're going to lose your career.
Yeah.
And the people who are standing up often are top of the line soldiers.
They're the ones that you want support.
You want to stay
on the line
because they won't do crimes against humanity. They won't do crimes against the United States citizens. Additionally, while you have this Confederacy con of political rallies going on at Fort Bragg, they also brought in campaign merchandise.
Of course they did.
And they sold campaign merchandise, which is just hugely wrong. One of the most infamous pieces of merch that was being sold were these fake credit cards.
Yeah.
That literally said white privilege on them.
Yeah.
And that is something you can't walk away from. And it's just like, this is really, really bad, folks.
Yeah. That was about as bad as you can possibly get. All right, that's a downer note to end on, but we are out of time.
So yeah, understand optics are everything. There's a lot of visual things going on. And explore the depth of things.
Yeah, don't take things at face value. Dig a little bit deeper. Figure out where it's, figure out if it's the legit stuff.
Yes, figure out if it's a manipulation, like an AstroTurf for the eyes. Figure out if there's a secondary agenda there.
Are you seeing what they want you to see, or are you seeing what's actually happening?
Yep. So, hey, have a good day out there. Be safe.
Bye.
And good luck this weekend.
Bye.
Bye.